You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
This is TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network, a weekly audio safari that features the newest in paranormal discoveries while highlighting the latest and not to be missed TruthFunder.com projects. For truth seekers and true believers, this week's TruthFunders starts now.
We're back. Hey everybody, greetings, bonjour, hola. This is Mark Schwartz, CEO of TruthFunders. Art Webb is not here tonight, and he's sick at home with the stomach flu and vomiting profusely. So if everyone out there can just take a second to picture some white light, send him some good healing thoughts, I'm sure he would really appreciate it. Art, if you're listening somewhere and relaxing, I hope you get well, buddy, and we'll see you next week. Wow, so I have been gone for the past 2 weeks, and where have I been? Well, if you've been listening to the show, you might know. If you're brand new, well, you'll find out. I got married, and that's crazy. It's awesome. I am now a part of a real cool club, which is the Husband Club, and I can't believe it. I mean, so much stuff has happened in the paranormal world over the past 2 weeks, and I've been gone, but I've been off doing something really cool, which is tying the knot. So, one of the major things that happened, and I'm sure all of you listening know about it, unless you've been hiding under a rock for the past month, is that contact in the desert happened. Now, TruthFunders was planning to be there and represent, and in fact, I made sure to plan my wedding earlier in the year just so that I would be able to go to contact in the desert. So the wife, then fiance, and I picked out a date for our wedding, and we booked our venue, which is extremely hard and expensive in Northern California. But I felt great about it. You know, it was the really great time of the year, spring. And then when I was listening to the announcement for CITD, they released their dates. And wouldn't you know it, it literally was happening on the one weekend that I was getting married. Of all the dates in the world, May 30th. It's like, really? Maybe that's, you know, what they call synchronicity. So speaking of dates, I hate to bring this story up, but I saw it and I feel like I have to. As those of you who tune in every week know, TruthFunders is a website, www.truthfunders.com, that helps to crowdfund paranormal projects of every type, from research to movies to books and beyond. So when I hear space and crowdfunding, my first initial thought is TruthFunders, but not today. So I was just going through weird news, as we like to look at, you know, the crazy, weird, bizarre news of the day. And did you guys hear this story? Okay, here it goes. So I apologize for saying this. Some of you might get offended, but just know it's in good taste, and it's a little bit of a humorous story as well. So Pornhub, which is a pornographic website, and they're having a first ever crowdfunding campaign to film the first ever porno movie in space. That's right. That's crazy. I just want to say right now that this has absolutely no affiliation with TruthFunders, but that would be crazy though, wouldn't it? And I have to say that I might have to watch it out of curiosity if it actually happened, because how do they do it in zero gravity? I remember being 13 years old and asking friends about that. Like, what do astronauts, how do they do it in space? So anyways, totally weird. The scary part is that according to this article that I was reading, Pornhub has something like 19 billion users worldwide. So if everyone out there gave $1, they might be able to fund something like that, which is totally ludicrous to think about. And there are so many jokes that I could insert here, but I think it's best to just move on. But I just wanted to say, TruthFunders, no affiliation with that whatsoever. And still on the topic of dates, I'm sure you heard about George Norrie, who launched his paranormal dating website, paranormaldate.com, and I'm truly fascinated by this. It just goes to show that what we're doing on TruthFunders is on the right track, and the paranormal industry it's getting huge. So what do you think of this? Have you signed up or visited the site? I'll tell you right now, if I wasn't married to the love of my life, I might take a peek. There's definitely got to be some open-minded spiritual souls on that website. But what's your take? Do you think that's a good idea? And I don't know, have you used it? Have you met someone on it yet? I don't know. Can you meet someone that fast online? I'm not sure. But I would love for you to call in and let me know your thoughts about this. Or, talk to me about your time at Contact in the Desert. And you can call into the show now, if you like, at 1-888-919-2355. You'll also want to keep that phone number handy, as tonight on TruthFunders Radio, our guest is Duncan Clark, cameraman for the popular show MythBusters, as well as a drone operator. And we will discuss paranormal episodes of MythBusters and new questions about drones, drone laws, what it's like to operate a drone, the future of drones in our society, and more. And we will take calls from 6:45 to 7:30. So once again, write down this number, 1-888-919-2355. And now we have Space Boys on the line. So for all of you who don't know Space Boy he's an incredible human being. He is a musician, and he created the first project on TruthFunders that was totally completed and fulfilled. So he is like the TruthFunders superstar. He's also created the intros for several other radio shows, paranormal radio shows, including Jimmy Church's Fade to Black. That intro is Space Boy, as well as Bill and Nancy Burns' Future Theater, which they've been guests on the show. They're fantastic people. So right now, Space Boy, greetings. How are you?
Greetings and salutations, my friend. And by the way, congratulations on your new marriage there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. Are you married, Space Boy? Is that okay if I ask you that?
Yeah, no question is off bounds with me. Yeah, I actually, Solana and I met on Yahoo Personals back in the, I guess it's going to be going on for about 10 years ago. And that's how we met, yes.
Oh, that's awesome. So did you meet her in like a paranormal site, sort of like George Norrie's thing, or did you guys just meet somewhere else on the Yahoo site itself?
It was basically it was Yahoo Personals that I guess later Match.com scooped it up, but yeah, we met there, and we basically what sold her to me or vice versa was we both liked the show called Red Dwarf, which is popular in Britain.
Of course,
and she said, oh well, I think I'm going to keep you for a while, So, and a while has turned into 10 years, so it's been the best 10 years of my life.
Congratulations. It's so good to hear. Yeah. Finding somebody is, it's really exciting. It's invigorating. It keeps you motivated. My wife, it's so weird to say that. I'm still not used to saying that. My wife is phenomenal. She, makes me a better person. So it's really cool. What do you think about George Norrie's site, Paranormal Day? Do you think it's going to be a success? Have you heard anybody using it? Was it a big buzz at Contact in the Desert?
Well, surprisingly, I guess I'm getting the exclusive here first on that. I hadn't heard about that. Everybody there's love in different ways. It's just a matter of making the right connection, So if somebody's going to find a love connection through paranormal, why not? There are people who have that same kind of love for that kind of thing. And so if they can meet on that level, then all the more, the world cannot be without enough love, and so if you can make a connection that way, that's the way to go.
That's awesome. I totally agree, and I think that it's really cool what he's doing, because it does show that there is, I don't think he would go so far as creating this type of site if there wasn't an audience for it, and if there wasn't a place for it. So it just goes to show how big the paranormal genre is getting, and I like that, because it gives more exposure, to people worldwide about all the strange stuff that's going on in our universe.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about Contact in the Desert. I heard there's a rumor that you were wearing the signature Space Boy costume, which is like the full-on Space Boy helmet and spacesuit. Can you describe the spacesuit for people listening right now?
Yeah, basically the spacesuit is almost like an authentic astronaut's outfit. that maybe the Apollo 11 or Apollo 12 would have worn on their journey to the moon. And but it's a little customized for me. It's got certain patches that recognizes me, Space Boy, where I'm from, Houston, Texas, and so it's fairly authentic looking. And it's weighty. It looks good, and I mean, it's not something you would go down to the costume shop and pick up. I had it tailor made, and it definitely,
so cool.
It's definitely works. It works the crowd, so to speak.
So you wore it at Contact in the Desert, and those who don't know what Contact in the Desert is, it's this huge. It's where everybody comes and like all the experts on all the different subjects of UFOs and ghosts and everything, all the stuff we talk about on this show. It's where they all gather, and you can go and see. It's a conference basically, but it's sort of the up and coming, the most popular conference currently in the paranormal industry. So it was, and it's in the desert, obviously from the name. So were you hot in the costume at all?
well, surprisingly, no. It was when I arrived with the costume. I guess it was about 5 or 6 in the afternoon. So the sun's already starting to go down, and so I guess most of the heat had dissipated. And then where I ended up, where Jimmy was doing his show that night, they had, I'm going to quote unquote on this one, air conditioning in there, so it wasn't so terrible in there. So no, it was quite comfortable. And then plus, as I'm going through the crowd, I'm quite distracted because people want to take a picture, and and so it was a win-win for me as far as Space Boy is concerned.
So let me ask you this, were other people dressed up? Was there anyone else dressed as like aliens or anything?
Surprisingly, even compared to last year, even this year, no one was really kind of dressed up in the alien outfits or people looking like they were from Venus or, typical things you might see or hear in the UFO community. When I showed up, it was pretty much a one-act play kind of situation where I stood out like you could not miss the guy coming up from the desert in a spacesuit. And so yeah, I was flying solo that day.
So we only have about 3 minutes left with you, and there's so many questions I want to ask you. But if you happen to see Space Boy and you were at Contact in the Desert, we would love to hear from you in the next 3 or 4 minutes. You can call us at 1-888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. So basically, Space Boy, you must have gotten all sorts of attention from everybody if you were the only one kind of dressed up. Did you meet anybody? Like who was the most incredible person that you either A, met or B, saw live and gave the most incredible and great talk?
Well, the thing is that with that spacesuit, it kind of opened up a lot of doors for me. And I had met some of these people last year, like Linda Moulton Howe, and she's just a wonderful, great lady to get to know.
Incredible.
And, yes,
her delivery is like impeccable. It is so good. I get riveted every time I hear her.
I'm
talk.
I'm always impressed with her presentations, and I mean it's always spot on. It's always engaging to listen to her. And but I mean, as far as people, I met Tsoukalos, and I met Van Daniken was the most interesting one. Here I was, this guy in a spacesuit. I said, "Hey, can I get a picture with you?" And he was a little, I guess, confused by it, but he kind of went with it like a good guy. And Stan Friedman, which was awesome to see him this year because last year he had that stroke, and but he looked great. He was in command and in charge, and so yeah. And then of course one of my favorites, Jim Mars. I always like listening to Jim. He's one of my favorite, and kind of partially because he's a Texan as well, and so I get along with him fabulously.
That's awesome. Oh man, I'm gonna have to talk with you offline and hear more of your stories, or maybe we can get you back on the air next week or the week after, and we can have some personal Space Boy time with the rest of the Truth Funders audience. That would be great. I want to thank you so much for coming on and talking to us a little bit about it. There's so much more to hear, and you know what? We will definitely get you on, Space Boy, and talk about some of the cool little intimate stories that happened at Contact in the Desert.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And, as always, I believe in the Truth Funders campaign. So if you need me for anything, you know where to find this old Texan.
Definitely, definitely. We should do some co-hosting sometime, too. You should come on and be like a co-host with me for an episode. If, Art's sick one week, or if I'm sick one week, you can hang out with Art. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That would. Just let me know.
All right, sounds good. Everybody, Space Boy. Woohoo! Cheers! Applause. All right, so next up we have Duncan Clark. And Duncan is, for those of you who are just tuning in, Duncan is the cameraman for the popular show MythBusters. And he's also a drone operator. Now, there's not a lot of camera drone operators out there, but I guess they're starting to be more and more. And as time is going on, Amazon wants to create an army of drones to deliver packages. I think there was an episode of Parks and Recreation I saw where they were sort of making fun of this idea, and there was drones dropping off packages at people's houses with stuff that was personalized for them, and it was really creeping out the people in Parks and Rec. So, yeah, I want to introduce everybody to Duncan Clark. So, Duncan, are you there?
I sure am. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Excellent. So, for people who are listening and want to know a little bit about you and what you do, I would love to hear a little introduction. What do you have to say for yourself, sir?
Well, I am one of the cameramen for MythBusters, and I've been with the show for about 9 years now.
Wow.
And, for me, it was, really a dream come true to get that job. And I've sort of worked my way up. I started actually as an intern, and now I'm one of the camera operators. So I feel very fortunate to be where I am today. But for me, it's really a cool opportunity. I mean, it's been kind of a dream for the last 9 years because it's like the perfect combination of my interests. It's I have this real artistic side, and I love the aesthetic value of things, but I'm also really into the sciences and science, technology, engineering, and working on MythBusters is really a combination of those things. I'm doing camera work, which is very much an art, but at the same time we're doing really cool experiments, and all the while that we're making the show, I'm learning so much about technology, science in our world, and so it's been really cool. And I've been really fortunate to have the job, but yeah, camera work is what I do professionally. But, like I said, I also always, I'm always sort of investigating, topics of engineering and technology. And, that has sort of led me to get into the whole drone revolution that, I'm sure, everyone out there is starting to become aware of.
Yeah, and I want to definitely get to the drone stuff. I think that is probably going to be the main part of our conversation today, because there's just so much to talk about with all the new laws that are coming out or trying to be created, sort of the uprising of the drones. Some people are afraid of it. Some people think it's the best thing to come out since sliced bread. And I definitely want to get there. But just maybe for the next 10 minutes before our first break for the show, I'd love to know a little bit more about, what you've worked on MythBusters, or have there been any paranormal episodes that you have been a part of that you've really been interested in, or that have turned some heads, or anything that you can think of that's just been kind of cool and out there that you guys have helped bring to light?
Sure. Well, I mean, the paranormal is definitely, a topic that turns a lot of heads, especially amongst the scientific community. And so, most...
And actually, right there, if I could stop you just for a second.
Sure.
On TruthFunders, we look at both sides of things. And it's really important that we kind of get the paranormal point of view as well as the scientific point of view. And we had Dr. David Schwartz from the USGS on, 1 week. And then we had suspicious observers on the next week, and just seeing kind of both sides. So one thing that I think is interesting is that MythBusters tries to look at myths too. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to say that we're interested in all sides of the spectrum here. We just want to know the truth. And I think that's one thing that MythBusters tries to do. And I think some people might not agree with everything, but it's really interesting to see it all happen. No matter what side of the fence people might be on.
Sure. Well, we in producing the show, we do our best to adhere to the scientific method, and everything, all the experiments we do are real and thought out, and we base our results on the evidence that we get, and the data from our experiments, and then we determine the plausibility of the myth based on our experimental results. And of course, in the scientific method, you can only ever have a theory until somebody comes out with a better theory.
Sure.
I mean, I guess one of the things that I feel like that I'd like to share is sort of there have been a number of myths that the most interesting ones to me are the ones that have a result that is glaringly obvious. And when we start, and of course I'll preface this all by saying these are all my opinions, and I don't want to represent the opinions of MythBusters, the show, but
sure.
For me personally, a lot of times we'll go into these stories, and the myth is there for us to investigate, and initially there you have that feeling like, oh well, that sounds kind of far-fetched, or that sounds almost silly at times, and then you start investigating these stories, and sort of the most gratifying ones are when the result happens, and you're kind of shocked. You're like, wow, like I can't believe that actually happened the way that people thought it might have happened.
So what's a good example of that?
Well, one funny one that we did a while back was the myth of the falling blue ice. So I can't recall where it happened, but somewhere in the middle of the country, people all of a sudden started reporting that large chunks of blue ice were falling out of the sky, and either crashing through their roofs. I think if I remember correctly, somebody had this chunk of blue ice fall through her roof and landed in her living room, and then somebody else's car maybe got hit by one, and so people were like, what in the world is causing this? Like, how is blue ice, like, and by blue I mean very blue like Breaking Bad blue. Yes.
So you get that reference.
Yes, I do. And so, the people approached the FAA, I recall, and the FAA said, oh, we have nothing to do with this. The thought was like it was coming from airplanes or something, and people thought maybe it's coming from airplanes somehow, but the FAA denied it.
Like contrails or chemtrails kind of stuff?
Well, the theory was proposed. The connection was made that the toilet water in airplanes is blue. And so...
That's yummy.
Yeah, right? I'm sure everyone is familiar with that blue water in
Sure.
in the toilet in the airplane lavatories. But anyway, the theory was proposed that if there was a slow leak out of the drainage valve on the exterior of the craft that was, slowly dripping out blue toilet water, then it could potentially begin to freeze on the exterior of the aircraft when the aircraft was at altitude where, it's very, very cold.
Wow.
And so, so maybe a big chunk of blue ice, started to form on the outside of the airplane and then fell off. And so we went to a NASA facility. Where was it? I think it was Cleveland. They have a racing research wind tunnel where, it's a wind tunnel where they test, aerodynamic.
Sorry, Duncan, you're breaking up a little bit. What was that last sentence?
It was we tested the myth of the blue ice at a NASA facility. Am I coming in okay?
Yeah, now you're great.
Okay. So what we did, we built a sort of a model of an airplane fuselage, and we got the actual valve of an airplane toilet water drain valve and set it up in this wind tunnel. And the wind tunnel has the ability to, lower its temperature down to like, minus 60 degrees Celsius, and they're able to simulate conditions of airliners flying at cruising altitude. And so we had a big tank of blue toilet water that led down to the actual valve that would have been found on an aircraft. And we started up the wind tunnel, 500 mile per hour wind, and we lowered the temperature down to, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's, something negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And we induced a slow drip of this blue water. And after a period of about 30 or 40 minutes, we had a soccer ball sized chunk of blue ice on the side of the plane, or the side of our fuselage that we had built. And we had this giant chunk that formed, and we were all kind of amazed. And then we simulated what would happen when the airplane began its descent. So, we started slowly raising the temperature of the wind tunnel, and, all of a sudden the temperature's, getting, higher and higher. And then all at once, the entire chunk of blue ice released from the fuselage section that we'd built.
Wow.
And it was just such a glaringly obvious result that this could actually have happened that I think we must have called that one confirmed. But,
so that's messed up. And did anything ever happen with the FAA after that, or was anybody ever called, or was there did people complain? Do you know any of the story after?
I don't know any of the story after, but if I had to guess, I think the FAA would have still denied it. Sure. But who knows? I couldn't say for sure.
They tend to. So you deal a lot with the FAA because you fly drones, right? You have to sort of comply with a lot of their regulations.
Absolutely, and it's a very gray area that we're in right now. And in my experience, the FAA is very slow to make change.
And
a good thing. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, and on that note, I'm going to pause you real quick, and we'll get back to drones right after we come back from the break on TruthFunders Radio. You are listening right now to Duncan Clark, drone operator and MythBusters Cameraman, and Mark Schwartz, CEO of TruthFunders, and we'll be back right after this.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
TruthFunders was started as a place to shine a spotlight on paranormal projects. Other big-name crowdfunding sites vary paranormal projects that contain UFO, ghosts, Bigfoot, research, documentaries, books, clothes, movies, and more. At TruthFunders, we invite people to not just listen to our show, but interact and do something about it. You can create a project. Yes, you, listening to the radio right now, you can make a difference. Stop dreaming and take action at www.truthfunders.com. Click Create a Project and submit your idea. Or browse the other paranormal initiatives that other brave souls have put their energy into. Support them as they reach into their creative spirit and turn their passion into progress. Each donation you will make, you will receive something in return. From a book to a DVD to a Roswell I-beam and plenty more. You don't have the scratch to donate? Fine. Share anywhere you can, from Facebook to Twitter, or blog about it. That's free, and it helps support a community of people that not only want, but need to get the word out. We are not alone. We are a community. We need to believe in each other as much as we believe that there's more to life than meets the eye. Help support a project on TruthFunders, or create your own today at www.truthfunders.com.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free. You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
Listeners, this is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called DreamNuage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DreamNuage.com. Simple, raw, organic.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
And welcome back to TruthFunders Radio. This is Mark Schwartz, CEO of TruthFunders, and with me online live is Duncan Clark, and Duncan is cameraman for the very popular television show MythBusters. He is also a drone operator. And so right before we went to break, we started talking about drones. So I want to bring that back up. And once again, if you have a question that you want to ask Duncan regarding something that you might have seen on MythBusters or about drones, please feel free to call in. This might be your only chance to get some burning questions that you've wanted to have answered for a while. You can call in at 888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. So, Duncan, right before we went to break, you were starting to talk a little bit about drones. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how you got into them, and then maybe we'll head into some of the things that you're noticing with the FAA and some of the new laws that are starting to crop up?
Absolutely. Well, I've been interested in aviation for a very long time, and with that, I sort of started getting into radio-controlled aircraft. And, I was doing that for a while and, also, doing camera work professionally. And, it wasn't long before I started putting cameras on radio-controlled airplanes. And so somewhere along the line, probably about 5 years ago or so, multirotor helicopters started coming on the scene. And, I might add that, there have been people doing aerial cinematography and aerial camera work with, radio-controlled helicopters for some time, but it's the technology that has come about more recently that has really enabled some spectacular, the ability to get spectacular results, with a radio-controlled drone, as people have been calling them lately. For the longest time, I really didn't like the word drone, because to me it sort of it kind of implies a sort of an autonomous military surveillance and attack vehicle. I guess that's probably just because we see in the news the military sending drones to Afghanistan and so forth. Whereas
that's definitely what I think about. I think people think about drones coming in and spying on people through windows, drones listening into people. Cops have a whole bunch of drones now, and people also think about drones as going into like Iran or Iraq, and bombing a bunch of people. So they have kind of the word drone definitely has a strange ring to it. It sounds ominous.
Yeah, I feel like it sort of has a negative connotation. And the way that I use drones, as you can see, I've completely started using the term because it's sort of just taken hold in the public eye. But when I'm operating a drone, it is in no way autonomous at all. I'm in complete control of it all the time. That being said, the technology has gotten us to a point where if a problem should arise, say, you fly too far away and you go out of radio range, the drones, these days do have the ability to go into an autonomous mode and return to you and land automatically, which is, a really nice feature to have. Additionally, it's also very accessible and easy to adapt, autonomous functions. And, it's just remarkable, how quickly the technology is moving. Before I was talking about people doing aerial cinematography with radio-controlled helicopters. And, there were certainly a lot of really, there was, good material, produced from that sort of platform. But, as, one of the big, things to change in more recent years is battery technology. And,
right.
Up until recently, if you wanted to lift, any, reasonably heavy camera or, payload, you'd need to use gasoline engine. And they can be very loud, and, there are a lot of downsides to those. Whereas now, we're seeing the energy density of batteries, getting a lot better. And some of the things that have sort of come into existence with these drones is, a combination of the battery technology that's allowing for longer flight times with, clean, quieter electric power. And then the sensor technology is the other thing that has made it possible. And interestingly, and possible as well as affordable, which I think is one of the big things to touch on. Everybody nowadays has their smartphone with, internal sensors. They have internal accelerometers and gyroscopes that, essentially give your phone, it knows its orientation in space,
And I just want to say real quick, Duncan, for those of you listening right now, if you go to Facebook and go to TruthFunders on Facebook, you will see a picture of Duncan holding one of his drone cameras on Facebook. Now, it's at a strange angle because it was recorded oblong and sideways, but you will be able to see some of the drones that he is talking about right now, as well as some of the sensors that he's discussing.
And the cell phone technology has made, all of this affordable because it's in the mass market, and, it's glorious. And so I'll talk a little bit about, the benefits to these multirotor drones that, are sort of the most common that we're seeing out there these days. So pretty much they operate, they have a flight controller that uses, a combination of, accelerometers, gyroscopes, GPS antennas, as well as magnetic compasses and barometers that pretty much make the craft aware of its orientation in space. And,
is it the same sort of thing that they're using on the new Google car, that the driverless Google car?
I'm sure a lot of the technology is the same, certainly GPS. And I know that there are a lot of autonomous cars and other vehicles that incorporate other technology, radar, sonar, all these, various sensors and technologies that increase the situational awareness of the vehicle. And we're starting to see some of those more advanced technologies implemented in, some of the drones that we're seeing out on the market today. And, it's certainly it's a huge hobbyist, area as well. And, a lot of this stuff is being pioneered by the hobbyists, and, just the ability these days for, there to be communication between people. We were talking about online dating a little bit earlier, and, the internet and, social media and, all these things, the ability for people to come together, share ideas, and, pretty much just, it really is an effective way of pushing the technology when you can combine different ideas and different minds together.
Absolutely. So do you find that people are building their own drones, that it's not just store-bought stuff, like right out of the box, and they're using them? And what are they using them for? Or are they creating their own drones that do things that they, want them to do just out of their own creativity? Like not just a camera, but are they used for other purposes as well?
Absolutely. I think there's a huge hobbyist, industry for this kind of thing. And, when I, it was really cool when I, and I certainly still consider myself a hobbyist. One of the things that really sort of got me into the whole camera work thing was FPV, radio control flying, which stands for first person view. And so pretty much people started putting cameras that transmitted the video down to them on the ground, and, pretty much enables you to fly a radio control aircraft from a pilot's perspective. And, that was just the coolest thing to me, to be able to do that. And, it's getting better and better all the time. I saw something online. A guy built an FPV radio control airplane and utilized directional antennas to be able to, get, a video image, as well as be able to control the airplane from really far away. And he sent it up on a gas balloon. So he launched it from Earth on a gas balloon and sent this thing up into, I don't know exactly the altitude that he achieved, but it was, I would guess, above 50,000 feet or more.
Wow.
Potentially, even, when you see the video, he might as well be in what you'd consider outer space, and still was able to have radio control and video from his airplane. And
so do you think then, it takes a lot to create something like that. It takes brains and it takes time and patience. Do you find that there are there particular places that people go to fly the drones or to create them, or is it just anywhere that people can go? And also on top of that, do you know a lot of drone operators? Is it something that more and more people are doing, or is it just you have to know somebody to, do you have to have a license?
Sure.
Or is there any sort of specifics you need?
Well, for a long time, there's been an association called the Aero Modelers Association that has sort of been the governing body of all things radio control aircraft. But it's never been that big of a hobby, and it's never really be like it's becoming today. Because now, when you go to your local park and you see people flying.
Duncan, you're starting to break up just a little bit. Let's see, maybe if you stand still, you might be able to get some great reception somewhere.
How am I coming in? Am I coming in okay?
Now you're great, yeah. So you were talking about, people go to the park?
Yeah, well, we're seeing these things being flown more and more. And, because of that, I think, the safety concerns are becoming more and more, relevant because, it's not that difficult to build a heavy, fast-moving, flying drone that could potentially cause damage or injury to people or property. And so currently there are no laws that govern average people from going out and flying these things. The FAA does, however, restrict the commercial use of them. It is technically against an FAA regulation to operate a drone for hire for any sort of, anything that has to do with money. You're not allowed to do it.
So you can only be a drone operator if you are a hobbyist, and you can't be doing it for financial purposes. So let's say somebody wanted to hire a private investigator to spy on them, on somebody else. And this person, because I was reading an article before our interview today that a lot of private investigators are using drones to spy on, people cheating on their wives or whatever the case might be. That person could not actually legally take money for using this drone without a license, or or if he had a license, could he take money for it, or is he not allowed to do it at all?
He would not be allowed to do it at all unless that individual was able to obtain an FAA Part 333 exemption.
And how difficult is it to get that?
It requires lawyers and money, and one of the major uses of drones, is in cinematography. I mean, we're starting to see, the use of these things in television and film, and it's becoming easier to obtain one of these for media usage. Now, for private investigation, I couldn't say. But in addition to, it is possible to obtain a quote license to be able to do it legally, but you're doing it as if these things are treated by the FAA as aircraft, and while they are and another important thing to note, I think, is that technically they are referred to UAS, which stands for Unmanned Aerial Systems, and that is a combination of the flying vehicle in the sky and the pilot operating them from the ground. And so while there are sort of standardized routes to obtain an exemption for uses like camera work, it's pretty much done as far as I know on a case-by-case basis. But there are certainly so many other uses in addition to camera work that that these things are really beneficial, and I think we're going to really start to see drones used in all sorts of industries. A friend of mine has a company that uses them for inspection of wind turbines and solar panel arrays, and they're able to use a drone to take incredibly high resolution photographs of giant wind turbine, electricity generating wind turbines, and they're able to look for cracks and leaks and so forth, and they can accomplish at a fraction of the cost what it would take many people weeks to do. And not to mention, you're not, sending people, up really high, and there's a lot of risk involved with sending people up to do these inspections. And so there's so many safety and economic reasons why this sort of thing is becoming really, we're going to start to see this a lot in the future.
I'd imagine that we definitely would. There's a host of a radio show named Jimmy Church, and he has a show, Fade to Black. And maybe it was a year and a half ago, he came up with, because we talk about the paranormal a lot on this show. There was a underwater base that he believed to have found, or some strange geological evidence. Was one of the two, and it was really deep in the ocean, a little too far for the normal man to go swim in, and too deep for someone to really go diving in. It would be expensive. You would need a whole diving crew, a boat, to go really explore some of this underwater stuff. Now, there are companies creating underwater drones, right? So for a fraction of what it would be to go out and figure out what's happening at this underwater base in Malibu, without going and hiring the professional scuba diver, and is it possible? Have you heard of these underwater drones that could go and potentially scout underneath the water?
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of thing has been available, but on the extremely expensive end of the spectrum, okay. Military and high-end research companies and so forth. But that, just like aerial drones, underwater drones are going to be just as big of a thing, I think, in the coming years, which is so cool. And there's just so many other uses. Exploration is a big one. You're able to explore and gather data and take photographs or videos of places that you otherwise could never do or never do safely. And it's becoming so accessible and affordable that I think a lot of people can get into this as a hobby, and it's really going to take hold in the in the professional realms as well.
That's it's fascinating. And what about Amazon? I know that they were trying to do their marketplace and have their packages sent by drones. Do you know much about that? And the resistance that the FAA has had?
Yeah, I've certainly heard about it. I don't know what the FAA's stand is on it, and it's hard for me to believe that that's actually going to happen. But then again, it very well might. These things are getting safer and safer. Redundant systems that these things, they're becoming self-aware, and they have. Well, one of the cool things about the multirotors is you can have redundancy with, there's a lot of people are familiar with the quadcopter, 4 propellers, but by having more, you can potentially lose propellers or lose motors, and it'll still fly just fine. So they're becoming safer. I think one of the biggest limiting factors for package delivery is going to be flight time limited by the batteries that we have today, because even the best batteries that are out there now are nowhere near as energetic, or well, they don't have the energy density of gasoline. Say gasoline has 10 times the energy density of the best batteries that we have out there today. I don't know if that's an exact statistic, but it's something like that. And but that being said, we're seeing more and more electric cars, and the battery technology is getting better. But for instance, I have a large camera carrying drone. It weighs about 25 pounds, ready to fly. It's about 1 meter in diameter, and it stands, when its legs are down, about maybe 3 feet tall. And it's sizable, it's big, and I get about 15 minutes at most per flight.
Oh, wow. So that really sucks up the battery, because we're not just talking about operating a camera, we're talking about the batteries for flight and the batteries for liftoff. And I guess, it's something that heavy. I felt how heavy the cameras by themselves are, extremely heavy. So once you add the rest of the mini helicopter pieces, I'd imagine that does weigh it down a lot. And what about gas? Can you do like a gas-powered drone?
Well, one of the reasons that these multirotors are able to do what they do is because, and one of the most glorious things to me is the only moving parts on the multirotor are the motors, whereas a traditional helicopter, with a single rotor, has a very complex mechanical system by which the pitch of the blades are adjusted in flight so that the helicopter can carry out its various flight maneuvers. Whereas on the electric multirotor, all of the flight maneuvers can be carried out simply by speeding up and slowing down different propellers. And as far as I know, you could not do that, at least currently, with gasoline engines, because they don't have the precision to speed up and slow down so accurately. Not having such a complex mechanical system also really increases the safety. I mean, a lot can go wrong on a single rotor helicopter, whereas, an electric powered multirotor, they just having these, direct drive motors, there's very little mechanically to go wrong.
So Duncan, we have, and I hate to pivot and change the conversation, but the chat room is blowing up right now, and there's a lot of people asking questions. And a lot of you out there, if you have questions, I would love to hear your voices, and I'd love for you to call into the show with your questions. The number is 888-919-2355, and Duncan Clark can answer your questions about drones. Now, there's one, let's see. So one of the questions that we're getting here, Carol asks, does Duncan see the possibility that paparazzi will endeavor to grab exemptions, or is that already going on?
I don't know if it's going on. And, sort of on that note, I mean, you think paparazzi, you think sort of, nobody really has a good opinion of the paparazzi because it's, invasion of privacy and so forth. And, right now there hasn't been anything really bad to happen. There hasn't been a big accident. Nobody's, crashed a drone into a freeway causing, loss of life or injuries or something like that, at least that I've heard of. And so, it's a bit worrisome to me, and I really hope that, people are responsible as hobbyists using these things I don't know what the FAA will do in terms of, issuing a form of license to paparazzi or something like that. I mean, I feel like without doubt, there are going to be privacy laws that will come into play. But for me, it's like so much of this is in the hobbyist world and is largely unregulated that, I feel like people such as myself, sort of have an obligation to represent the hobby of flying drones and, shouldn't take it lightly.
Sure. I mean, I'd imagine someone with like the paparazzi license, I think that they're just not clever enough to think about it yet. But maybe they already have. If they were able to get a license, they'd be flying drones into Brad Pitt's backyard and looking through the windows and trying to film stuff, all the time. So have you heard of anything like that? Has there been any complaints? Have you noticed anything?
I haven't heard anything. I feel like it's only a matter of time until something like that does happen. I hope it doesn't. I feel like that's wishful thinking, but I feel like.
Look at this! I just found on Google CBS News: paparazzi now using drones to hunt down and photograph celebrities. So that's, they're definitely out there. They're definitely thinking about it.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I think, we're going to start to see, and I don't know if anti-drone drones is the right word to use, but,
Do you think that there would be other drones, like government drones, that shoot down drones that don't have license or that are, doing some of the stuff? Do you think that that's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it becomes regulated, more commonly, and people are able to get licenses to do various activities with these things, in my opinion, it seems likely that they would have to be equipped with, like a transponder, for instance, like in full scale aviation. Aircraft have transponders, and they're visible on radar and can be identified, and so people are going to be responsible for what they do with their drone, and if they are not responsible, they'll be prosecuted.
Right.
Right now we don't have that going on, and there definitely is the possibility these days for people to do bad things with unmanned aerial vehicles. And on that note, Duncan, we have to go to break, but I wanted to just say this quote from this article that I'm looking at now. California law already protects areas on the ground where people have a reasonable expectation of privacy, like a backyard. Newly proposed legislation would expand that protection to the skies. Recently, Miley Cyrus posted a video of a drone with a camera that she said was hovering above her home. It's kind of like the Wild West out there, says Eric Mahoney, head of production at Drone Dudes, an aerial cinematography company in Los Angeles. So I think that, that thought that drones are the Wild West right now. That's something to think about as we go into break. So everybody, you're listening to TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network. You can listen to us on InceptionRadio.com, the Inception Radio app that you can get at the iTunes Store or the Google Chrome Store. And there's so many other ways you can listen. The Roku app. And I know one person who's listening to us on the Roku app right now, which is my wife. So shout out to Claire in the other room. And on that note, we will see you right after the break.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
TruthFunders was started as a place to shine a spotlight on paranormal projects. Other big-name crowdfunding sites vary paranormal projects that contain UFO, ghosts, Bigfoot, research, documentaries, books, clothes, movies, and more. At TruthFunders, we invite people to not just listen to our show, but interact and do something about it. You can create a project. Yes, you, listening to the radio right now, you can make a difference. Stop dreaming and take action at www.truthfunders.com. Click Create a project and submit your idea. Or browse the other paranormal initiatives that other brave souls have put their energy into. Support them as they reach into their creative spirit and turn their passion into progress. Each donation you will make, you will receive something in return. From a book to a DVD to a Roswell I-beam and plenty more. You don't have the scratch to donate? Fine. Share anywhere you can, from Facebook to Twitter, or blog about it. That's free, and it helps support a community of people that not only want, but need to get the word out. We are not alone. We are a community. We need to believe in each other as much as we believe that there's more to life than meets the eye. Help support our project on TruthFunders, or create your own today at www.truthfunders.com.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Don't have a computer? Is your internet connection down? Don't worry. Use your trusty cell phone or landline and call into our listen line at 401-283-6700 to listen to the Inception Radio Network 24/7. Again, that call-in number is 401-283-6700. For the Inception Radio Network, I am MJ.
Hello, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Remember, you can take your Inception Radio shows on the go. Just download the Inception Radio Network app for your iPhone, iPad, or Android smartphones and access live shows, past shows, guest lineups, and much more. Just visit the iTunes Store or the Google Play Marketplace and download it today for free. You didn't forget what's coming up tonight, did you? Hi, Inception Radio Network listeners. This is Amanda. Never miss that interview you were looking forward to or the show on your favorite topic. Follow IRN on Twitter, I_R_N, and get reminders about the evening's live shows as well as fun and important updates throughout the week. That's I_R_N, and never miss a great show again.
Listeners, this is MJ saying hello and sharing an awesome secret I discovered. It's called DreamNuage.com. Fresh, raw, organic ingredients are used to create all their products. They are made in very small batches to ensure quality and freshness. Handmade in the USA, each product is created with care and with the finest organic ingredients. There are no preservatives, dyes, or chemicals in any product. Stop by Dream Nuage and relax. That's DreamNuage.com. Simple, raw, organic.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.
And welcome back to TruthFunders Radio, live Wednesday night. What's the date today, Duncan? I don't have the date in front of me. I think it's the
put me on the spot.
The 10th. The 10th. It's the 10th. I won't put my guests on the spot like that. Wednesday, June 10th, 2015. Right now, we are going into the last part of the show. We have about 20 minutes left of the show today. So we'd love for you to call in. Duncan, would you like to take some questions from the audience?
Definitely. I'd love to hear, from people out there, if they have any questions about the whole, the drone stuff. And, also if anybody has any information that, that would be new to me, because, I think there's a lot of unknowns out there, and I'd love to hear if anybody else out there, any of their experiences flying drones, or if they've, seen drones, doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. But yeah, I'd really love to hear, to get some questions and hear about people's experiences. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good thought. I hadn't even thought about that. Is there anyone out there listening right now? And once again, it's Wednesday, June 10th. So if you're listening live, please give us a call at 888-919-2355. That's 888-919-2355. Have you ever actually seen a drone? Or have you not seen a drone and only heard about them? Or have you seen a drone doing something naughty that it shouldn't have? And how often have you seen them? Or have you had some sort of strange experience with a drone? Duncan would love to hear your comments. Duncan gives talks. He's on other radio shows talking about drones and drone usage. So maybe you have an interesting story that you want to share, and he can talk about that. And the next time, he's on the radio somewhere. So go ahead and give us a call with your drone experiences at 888-919-2355. So that being said, Duncan, what are some strange things that you've heard about with drones? Have you ever heard someone tell you a really interesting story about it?
Well, I think the privacy thing is a big one. One thing that that's kind of funny to me is the idea of being able to spy on somebody with a drone. At least currently, if a drone was outside your window, you'd hear it. You'd be very aware that it would be out there. That quiet, and but that being said, who knows what somebody's developed out there. So there's the privacy thing. And I think just in general, people flying them where they shouldn't. I mean, for me, as a general rule, I won't fly it. I'll ask myself, if there were to be a catastrophic, malfunction at any point during the flight, would I be putting people or property at risk? So essentially, if it were to fall out of the sky at any point, would I land on somebody's car or, come down into a road and so forth? So, it's, that's sort of the biggest thing. And, I think with the availability of drones out there, people might sort of fly them willy-nilly, not really thinking about the consequences, but they could pose a serious distraction, to motorists, and in addition to, people might crash them. If an inexperienced pilot might crash one into somebody's house or into a car. So I think those are sort of the biggest, the most glaring issues, and that worries me more than sort of the privacy concerns. But that being said, I think the privacy thing is certainly very important as well. I mean, it's
definitely
an important thing, that people need and want their privacy, obviously. So that's sort of the biggest things that worry me. Yeah.
Now, Neutron in the chat room asks, Duncan, I once saw a picture of a drone shaped and the same size as a mosquito. Does this really exist today?
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, certainly, I've heard of the military developing really, really tiny drones. Nanotechnology is sort of on the rise as well. And, it definitely doesn't surprise me that something that small could be created. I don't think it's something that would be widely available. But it's remarkable how technology is getting more and more powerful, but also smaller and smaller.
Sure. That's represented in the cameras themselves. Absolutely. You have these really high, these powerful cameras that can do more and more, and they're getting smaller and smaller. Take a GoPro, for instance, or a DSLR camera out there. These things, before you would have to have these huge beta cams and strap batteries like Rambo across your chest. I used to have to do that, and you go around filming stuff, and the quality wasn't nearly as good as you would get with something like a GoPro or a Canon DSLR. That stuff now is just like, incredible, and it's so much smaller and easier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's remarkable. I mean, the GoPros are a great example. They're really tiny and, produce an incredible picture for their size, and it's only going to get smaller and better. And, for that reason, I think the mosquito-sized drone is absolutely not out of the question. And, that sort of raises more, privacy issues. I mean, if you have something that small, you could fly it, underneath the crack in somebody's front door.
Yeah.
And, they wouldn't even know that it's there. And it would be so small and quiet that, that would definitely be, an issue if used inappropriately.
Now, I would think it's almost impossible for something the size of a mosquito to record video that you would be able to see, or to fly something like that. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe that's completely possible. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, it is hard to imagine, and but at the same time, if you think 20 years ago.
I'm sorry, Duncan. We have a caller right now.
Cool.
So I'm going to break in. Caller, are you there? Caller on the line. Going once. Gone. I guess the caller is gone. We missed him. We almost had one, though. I mean, I think somebody wanted to ask you something. So, if you get the chance, go ahead and call in again. We'd love to hear you, and Duncan would love to answer your question. So,
yeah, give us a call.
Yeah, definitely. 888-919-2355. It's 888-919-2355. TruthFunders Inception Radio. So, have you ever witnessed a drone crash, or have you ever crashed one yourself?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I've crashed a few. Mostly me being stupid. Never, in a situation where I was putting anybody or anything at risk, but my primary interest is, shooting video with drones, and, sometimes, I have to restrain myself because I'll get caught up in the shot that I'm getting. And usually it's because of poor situational awareness. I've certainly lessons have been learned, but, it's generally, I'll be, so locked in on a shot that I'll neglect the fact that there's a tree branch, sticking out, and, it doesn't take much to bring them down. So I've had a few little accidents like that, but
looks like we got a caller back on the line real quick. So caller, are you there? Maybe we don't have a caller.
They're trying to get through.
Almost there. All right. Let's see. Caller
They're probably
on
waving
the line.
their phone around trying to get service.
It might be a Skype issue too. Caller, if you are there, go ahead and just start talking. We're going to continue our conversation, but go ahead and join us at any moment. And the number is 1401, and I'll leave it at that. If your number starts with 1401, go ahead and start talking.
But yeah, I have crashed them, and it's not a good feeling. Especially if you spent months building it.
I'd imagine that it's fairly expensive as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've had, they're not always catastrophic. A lot of times you just break propellers and, have to put a few pieces back together. But, they've all been good experiences in hindsight because, you learn from your mistakes generally. And so, I feel like they've made me a better drone pilot, than had I not had those little mishaps in the past.
Absolutely. We learn from our mistakes. There is a question in the chat room from Punk Thug. What up, Punk Thug? He can't call in right now, but he asks, what are some ways drones can be used, or she? I might say Punk Thug might be a she. I just assumed it was a he. My bad, one way or the other. But Punk Thug can't call. But what are some ways drones can be used for environmental issues?
Well, certainly, data acquisition of all kinds. You could have, weather monitoring drones. One interesting idea is that I've heard is, maybe, search and rescue. That's not really environmental, but firefighting drones. If brush fires, especially out here in California, we're in the middle of a drought, and you could send drones in to put out small fires, well in advance of any firefighters could get there, and so that's sort of one thing that comes to mind. Let's see, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, pretty much. I feel like there's got to be tons of environmental uses that you could use them for.
Sure. I'd imagine, going around and scouring, I don't know, the rainforest or fires, like where the fire is and how big it has to be and like what you need to put out. Yeah, I'm sure there's all sorts of uses. Punk Thug, if you think of any or if you know of any, go ahead and let us know in the chat room. We'd love to talk about them online. So what else do you got for us? And have you ever used a drone, for entertainment purposes? Obviously, you do it, recreationally as a hobby. Have you ever filmed something like a movie using a drone, or sent stuff up there and something that we might know, or and not for a job, but just as a hobby? Because I think we have to say that.
Well, I certainly just enjoy. I mean, you can get beautiful pictures from the air, and while there's always the possibility to shoot video from a full size helicopter, one of the cool things about drones is that they can go where full size helicopters can't. They can fit into small spaces, and go where it might be too risky to send a full size helicopter. And so I really enjoy going out early in the morning and just trying to get beautiful footage. And, there's just really some spectacular imagery that you can obtain, with a camera carrying drone. So that in and of itself is a hobby for me.
And what's the most beautiful thing you've ever got?
Oh man.
I've seen some of your work. It's pretty incredible. I mean, these are shots that you can't get them anywhere else. I mean, it's something that you can't even get from a jib or a crane shot, Yeah. I mean, this stuff it's high, it's mighty, it's 360 degrees. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many, in the cinematography world, there's so many uses. Like you said, you can get, crane shots, and you can get tracking dolly shots, and, in addition to big, gigantic wide aerial shots that, show expansive, vistas and so forth. So, creatively, there's just no end to what you can do. And, so that, and then, in combination with, some of the other uses for drones, I can't keep from coming back to the idea that these things are going to be really prevalent in our society in the future.
But where do they exist? I mean, you have the, the skyline. Then, really high up, you have planes. Do drones exist somewhere in between? I mean, are they flying around, like in between where a plane would fly and the ground? Are they lower? Are they higher? above planes? I mean, where if I want to go outside and see drones, I hear that they're just everywhere, but I have to say I don't know if I've actually ever seen one in real life. So where would I be able to see one, and what would I be looking for or looking at?
Well, I mean, they certainly have the capability of infringing in the airspace that full-size aircraft are operating. And, again, that is, a big, it's a concern of mine. And it's something that if, the people out there that are interested in getting into this as a hobby or otherwise, need to realize that, you have a powerful tool, and it requires a bit of responsibility to think about where you're operating it. I mean, earlier I mentioned the Aero Modelers Association. There are some rules and regulations that have sort of been in place. I don't know if they're strict law, but generally, it's understood that you should never operate, a radio controlled aircraft at greater than 400 feet or in the vicinity of an airport, because even though
obviously
these drones,
it would get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, even a small drone, could take out an aircraft engine and could cause, serious problems.
If seagulls could do it, I'd imagine a drone could.
Yeah, and so, and that's one of the scary things is that, people really need to be responsible if they're going to do this, because it is accessible these days and reasonably affordable. So, that's a big thing. Most people aren't flying them at extreme altitude. James, but they're certainly capable.
James in the chat room says that there was a drone right in front of his porch, or I'll do the quote from him: "Drone right in front of my porch while I was doing a bong hit." So, James, that's awesome. I wonder if that was actually a drone that you were seeing, or maybe it was something from the bong hit itself. I'm not sure. Also, Neutron in the chat room asks, how big would the drone have to be to lift an IMAX camera?
Well, the IMAX technology is changing pretty dramatically as well. I mean, back in the day when IMAX was shot on film, and I guess it still probably is, but I do know that a lot of large format productions have gone digital. With the there are a lot of new cameras now that are shooting greater than 8K resolution, 10K resolution. But even so, and the lenses in combination with those are pretty heavy. But it's not unreasonable to build a drone that could lift, say, maybe a 50 or 60 pound payload, and it would be a powerful machine. But I mean, there is no limit. You could build it. But I would say, I mean, they might be referring to, the IMAX camera of yesteryear, the film camera that I don't know how much they weighed, but I would think a lot, like at 80 pounds, even maybe. And you could build something to carry it. It would be big. How big, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of variables involved, but you'd certainly be dealing with something that's several meters in diameter, perhaps. But
James also from the chat room says that the thing he saw was about as big as a small bird with 4 clear wings and a clear plastic body. Does that sound like a drone?
Sounds like a drone to me. If it's flying and it's a man-made object, then I would think it is. But I think another thing is people should start referring to them as unmanned aerial systems, because the drone, I don't know, it kind of has
it just
some weird
sounds
connotation.
ominous, like we talked about earlier. Well, that's about it for our show today, Duncan. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I think you had a ton of informative information, and it's a big topic. There was a lot of people online talking about this today, so it was really, really cool. Is there anything that you want to point us to, or anything that you would like to end this episode of TruthFunders on?
Well, I mean, I think sort of in closing, I would say that, while there's a fair amount of controversy around drones these days, and there's the potential to do bad things with them, there's also, tremendous potential to do really, really good things with them that are going to, really advance society in positive ways. And so, I would advise and hope that, all the listeners out there, if you're interested in getting into drones and, flying drones and, doing all sorts of things, that you do it responsibly and, sort of, realize that you're representing the world of drones by doing it yourself. And so, I think responsibility is a really important thing to put out there. And, I think that, that we're going to see just so many more drones in the future that, we want to make sure that, that they're used for good and not bad.
We need to make sure the drones are used for love, drone love, as
exactly
the chat room said earlier today. So I'm just going to wrap it up with that. Thank you so much, Duncan Clark, for coming on the show today. We truly appreciate it. I'll be in touch with you a little later on. I'll give you a call. Thank you, everybody in the chat room, everyone listening live, everybody listening to this later on this week on the podcast on Apple iTunes. Thank you, Inception Radio Network. This for Art Webb and for me, Mark Schwartz. This is TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network, and we will catch you next week. Thanks again.
TruthFunders Radio on the Inception Radio Network.